designation of enclosed areas. All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. Next is the against respondents Marilyn Marks and Richard DeMillo. Is there a motion with respect to Ms. Marks and Mr. DeMillo?
I appreciate counsel's well-reasoned and well-defended arguments. He did a great job for his clients. But I think the enclosed space, in my mind, my reading of the statute, is that the enclosed space was sufficiently barriered at Watson Government Complex. So I move that that matter be forwarded to the Attorney General's office for further processing.
So it's been moved. Is there a second? Okay, the motion fails for lack of a second. Is there another motion?
I'm going to move to, I'll move to dismiss.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to dismiss the complaint against Ms. Marks and Mr. DeMillo. Is there any discussion?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, you know, and I guess I go back to my voting district. I don't think I'd be comfortable with the number of people that were milling around this place. And all the times I've ever voted, I've never had this sort of number of people milling around. However, I do accept the fact that the ambiguity in the law, and also the fact that while Paulding County was attempting to protect the privacy of the voters, and I appreciate that, the way some of the barriers were set up made it difficult for observers to actually be able to do their observations in this particular narrow case. I do think that we need to clean up the law and clean up the rules before we would, you know, impose any kind of sanction on any individual. I think that the law here does not give us the power to do so here. And I hope that some of the folks, Ms. Marks and others, that, for instance, that proposed certain rules here earlier, respect the fact that I couldn't exceed what I think my authority was before, and I can't exceed here either. And for that reason, I'm moving to dismiss, but I do think that at the same time, we need to work with the Secretary of State's office, and should it be necessary for rules, or whatever else it takes to help work with Paulding County and other counties in terms of clarifying what is a private space, so that an observer can observe things from away and yet still allow voters to have that quiet moment that we all want when someone actually casts their ballot. Because I would not want, as a voter, I would not want people that close when I'm voting, but I accept the fact that there were certain ambiguities in this narrow situation, and that's why I'm moving to dismiss. I don't believe that anyone was attending anything nefarious either, don't get me wrong, but I do think that we need to clarify the rules and work with folks, my good folks from Paulding County and others, to come up with any kind of tightening of the definition so that an observer can observe from afar and still see everything, but that we have a well-defined private space. So for that, that's the reason why I'm moving to dismiss, Mr. Chairman.
Was this seconded?
Yes.
You know, my issue with this has been that I think for anybody who, on this occasion, with this event, with this being a pilot project, that the ability to, you know, there ought to be some clear rule about the distinction between the enclosed area and the polling place. And as it relates to observers, I don't think observers should ever be entitled to go into the enclosed area, but if that's the case, they ought to be accommodated within the polling place so that they can see the enclosed area and observe. And I think that's essentially what Mr. Lindsay's saying, is that that's something that they're entitled to do. But when you say, well, yeah, you can step in, but you can't go too far in, I think that does not accomplish what the law intends to accomplish, as Mr. Lindsay said, is to let somebody engage in the serious business of casting their vote and not have somebody who's not engaged in that same process be in the enclosed area. And I think on this occasion, that was not clear.
Can I add one other thing, Mr. Chairman, for the record? I want to thank my investigators, because I think you raised good points here. I think you brought a matter of good faith, and I think that you dealt with a unique situation here. You brought the facts to us to take a hard look at it. And I think that you, by virtue of this complaint, we are going to be able to address a very serious issue. So I was not particularly happy with anybody casting aspersions on you guys. I appreciate the situation in Paulding County with that investigation, because I think that it does raise and address important issues. So I do thank you for that.
And
So
I'm
don't want-
going to add to that before you say anything. I feel the same way. That when we get to this point, we want to hear facts. We don't want to hear somebody's characterizations or insinuations. Just tell us what you know, show us what you have, and to the credit of the investigators, we have hundreds of complaints that they're trying to get done. And any suggestion that this complaint was dealt with any differently than any other complaint, I don't appreciate.
I wanted to clarify that the investigator for our matter was not the gentleman here. And it was done prior to that, and I wasn't taking any personal shots at that. We look at the facts that we get them, and we look at who was prosecuted and who wasn't, and we make the arguments with respect to that as clearly as we can, as objectively as we can. Thanks.
But Mr. Brown, you're an advocate, so I had no problem with what you said either. I just wanted to make sure he understood that too. I understand. I wasn't casting aspersions on you either. You're an advocate. He's our investigator. I just want to.
I understand that, but I'm going to say this, that in the years that I have been doing this, the one thing that I've tried to get lawyers not to do and that I don't countenance is making characterizations, one, when the person's not here, and secondly, to make characterizations that they did something because they had some motive to do it, and to have that weigh into whether or not it's believable. In my practice of my profession needs to change. And it needs to change by not excusing everything just because you're advocates. It needs to change because we need to focus on what we do, on facts and the law, and not somebody's characterization because as a matter of advocacy, they think it helps their clients. And I just want to, I've said that a lot of times to a lot of groups. It happened here, and I'm going to say it here. All right, Rhonda Martin. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. Rhonda Martin. Is there a motion with respect to the complaint against her?
Move to dismiss for the same reasons.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, there being no discussion, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. Yeah. I think it is 12:25. I think that the next one is liable to go long as well, so we are going to take a lunch break to 1:30 and look forward to seeing everybody back at 1:30.